What's going on, everybody? My name is Nick.
My name is Dave.
And this is the Deep Dive, and we are recording this at a pretty busy week for us here at the church.
It is. It's one of those key weeks of the year.
Yeah, for sure.
It's right up there with like Christmas and Easter with all the stuff going on.
Yeah, not only are we kind of wrapping up our pumpkin patch, which real quick, just if you are watching this and you happen to be one of those people who volunteered, just want to say thank you for filling in those shifts. We don't have a full total at this point because we still got about 4 or 5 days left of selling. So I think we're going to end that first shift on Halloween.
Yeah.
But other than that, I mean, we've got Trunk or Treat coming up and
All Saints Sunday and Charge Conference. So it's a busy week for us. So,
That's right.
Well, let's get started in this podcast.
Yeah, let's do this real quick. Well, like we said, busy week, but not going to stop us from doing this podcast. We're sorry we missed last week. Just illness and stuff like that kind of kept us from doing it. So we actually have a couple weeks of this sermon series you've been working through, talking about generosity and stewardship and stuff like that.
Yeah. And we'll get into that in a second. I just want to give a quick disclaimer. If you don't know where we record this, it's out in one of the narthexes or lobbies. And the heating system in here, in the summer we're hot, and in the winter it's cold. And
we feel the seasons.
It's 50 degrees in here, so if I look cold, I am.
True.
But that's okay. I still think my brain is working, but sometimes, that all reflects. But we had a really good stewardship season. And for those of you who have turned in your pledge cards already, it's just going incredibly well. Pledges are already up from last year. Our total amount is already above what we pledged total last year. And we still, it was just 1 week. And so I'm very encouraged, and I think it points to the positivity that we're experiencing here at Hickory Flat. And so thank you for all of that, folks. And so we are talking on stewardship, and one of my emphasis throughout actually this year, but specifically in the stewardship, was to begin to look at stewardship as an act of discipleship, really a path to discipleship. It's one of the things that we do. Stewardship is bigger than just money.
Right.
It's our prayers, our presence, our gifts, our service, and our witness. During this season, we are talking specifically about money, and sometimes that can be a little, uncomfortable for us, and so I tried to stress it in a way that, it is part of our discipleship, and it is not about arm twisting. It's not about trying to make people feel guilty or trying to be manipulative in any way to, try to make people, give what they don't feel comfortable giving.
Right.
But yet realizing that Jesus talked about money a lot. Some people have said and looked at, different scriptures and counted them up and said that he talked about money more than he talked about anything except the kingdom of God. And so, I think sometimes when he was talking about money, it was a metaphor for the kingdom of God.
Yeah.
But it just still points to the part of how, that becomes very personal. Maybe that is why people have an uncomfortable level with that.
I think money also kind of brings a level of stress, especially if you're like, I feel like it's a little tight or whatever. Like, money has probably a bigger hold on us than we'd like to think.
Right. Yeah, it does. And we are also, just to acknowledge, that the economy isn't so great right now.
Yeah.
In some places it is. The stock market seems to be doing fine, but just going out and buying groceries, paying your electric bill, the government is shut down, and we've got federal workers here.
Yeah.
And so, I recognize it's a difficult time for people, and it's going to become, it looks like more difficult. And so, it does become very personal because, people have got bills and they've got other obligations that they need to make. But, we think about our life and living in gratitude to realize the blessings that God has given us. And, and most people here aren't missing meals. Thankfully. And so what are we going to do with the resources that God has given us? And I talked a lot about generosity. In fact, I think the title of the series was Generosity and Discipleship. And I think for some people, generosity becomes more natural than others, and I think than it does to other people. And I think sometimes that comes with how we were raised and nurtured and what we saw our parents do, or maybe just some circumstance that happened in our life that makes us be a little bit more hoardy, with our way. But I one of the things that I pointed out, it was 2 weeks ago, and so since I actually we didn't talk last week, I could talk a little bit of this, that there has been some evidence that generosity, when we are generous with our giving, it actually does something to us chemically in our brain that actually makes us more joyful and happy. And when we are hoarding or when we're being selfish, that actually leads to unhappiness and joy. And so, asking people to consider how God may be growing them in their generosity.
Yeah. I think that's a very cool and key thing to really think about, because I can reflect on my own life and the times when I find myself being generous. And again, we've talked about it not being just money, but for the sake of the conversation today, we're talking through money. But when I'm generous with my time, being able to be like, hey, I can come be there for this event, or I can show up to help you with this thing or whatever, that always brings a lot of joy. But also when you're able to kind of be like, let me buy you lunch, and you know that it's kind of a blessing, or when you're able to buy that little gift to help somebody feel better when they were in the hospital or something like there are ways that our money, and I always end up feeling better.
I really do think we're in a time when we can see that with some of the things that are happening in the economy. Mm-hmm. I've seen some social media posts from people that have said, if your family is struggling right now, let me know, because I want to help you. I'll buy you food or buy you meals. And I think when we get that sort of response of generosity, it makes the world a better place.
Yeah, for sure.
That's part of our calling as followers of Christ, is to make the world, lead the world better than we found it, to bring the kingdom of God into this world. And I think we do that with our generosity, whether it's time or talents or, financial ways as well.
For sure.
Yeah. And so, one of my favorite stories that I shared on Sunday was the story about that church up in Franklin, North Carolina.
Yeah.
And they were a church, and they were looking for ways that they could serve in the community. And they live in an area where I think there's a lot of rural, poor people there, and a lot of folks that have needs. And so they decided one thing they could do, there was a lot of people that like to garden and farm, and they had some property that they would make a community garden, and then they would give all the food away. And so the first year they did it, and it was successful, and they felt good about it, good enough to do it again the next year. And the next year was a banner year for whatever reason. And the way it was reported to me was they just had this incredible crop of tomatoes. They just had tomatoes, and they were beautiful tomatoes, just prize winning kind of tomatoes. And so some people that were working on it said, and their church also, like a lot of churches, was struggling a little bit financially. They said, what we ought to do with these tomatoes, I think they may be too beautiful to give away. Why don't we take them down to the farmer's market, and maybe we can, sell them there.
Here,
yeah, and we can raise some money for the church. And so the pastor thought about it, and he said, yeah, but that's not what we said we were going to do. We planted this garden to give away. God has blessed us with it, and so with this crop that we have, we need to give it away. So they did. And they gave away so much food that way that people in the community noticed, including, I think, one of the newspapers noticed and wrote a feature story about them. And so businesses in the community said, hey, wow, what a great thing you're doing. We'd like to contribute to that. And then other people saw it and said, you know what, I don't go to your church, but can I volunteer in your garden? I would love to be a part of that. And so suddenly this thing grew. They had more acreage, so they spread it out. And I think now they've got 4 acres. That's a lot of land. 4 acres that they're farming now, and they're giving away 40,000 pounds of food every year. And
that's incredible.
It goes to Meals on Wheels and some soup kitchens and that sort of thing, and just making an incredible difference in that, and God continues to bless that. But I think it's a metaphor, an example for the gifts that we give, how God can bless that and make difference beyond just the walls of our church out into the community.
Yeah, I love that, and I think the story also kind of reminds us is like, that church, it sounds like they just kind of had an idea and they're like, well, we've got land, and it's kind of like, use what you got and be generous with what you have, and let that grow from there. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. I think sometimes we get very caught off as like, oh, well, I can't give as much as maybe somebody else around me or whatever. But I think it's okay to start, especially in what we have to give, no matter how big, no matter how small. And I mean, that's all through the Bible too. You know what I mean? Right. It's just being able to give from what you have is important.
Yeah, it is. And I think it's a great example for our kids. I really appreciate all the things that we do to get our children and youth involved and giving and serving here. I've gotten a real kick out of the kids that have been volunteering for at the particularly Bryce Curtin out at the Pumpkin Patch. And the pride that they're taking in that, and I see them making posts on social media, hey, come out. And then I've seen a couple about the trunk or treat and stuff like that from our kids. Yeah. And I love to see that, because I think the training and the example that we set in that is going to transform them, and the adults that they grow into will be those adults with generous hearts that will just kind of continue the legacy.
Yeah. And I mean, you're talking about the children, and like, it's so much of a ripple effect when these things happen, because you've got great adults who have been mentoring these kids from the time they were children and showing them how to be generous with their time, with their talents, their gifts, all these things. And now they're at a spot where they're like, I want to. Right. You know what I mean? And that's the beautiful thing. That's how it's supposed to happen.
That is really awesome. But this congregation, and just continues to be just so generous. I think about, I think you pointed it out. I think I actually referred to it in the sermon too, is that we've had more than enough candy that's come in, but we had a need for more hot dogs for the trunk or treat thing that's coming up. And so Nicole was making announcements that day, and she just, she didn't casually, she firmly mentioned,
hey, we
need more hot dogs. And within 24 hours, we had way
like more, 500 hot dogs showed up.
Hot dogs. So that's just the way God works. The scripture that I used on the sermon was about the farmer doesn't not plant seeds. The farmer plants the seeds and expects God to bring the harvest. Yeah. If we didn't plant seeds, there'd be no harvest. We have a responsibility in that. Yeah. And so often where we see these things happen through God's grace and God's blessing, but it's people responding in discipleship, which is all about to how they're going to be stewards of what they have. Yeah. It's awesome. Yeah.
Very good. Yeah. Very good.
Yeah.
Well, we are kind of coming to an end, and I know we've talked a little bit about it. You mentioned this, being able to give pledges and stuff like that. And in case somebody missed it, in case they weren't, where can they find those materials?
Yeah, well, one place is online. Yeah. And Jackie, our financial person, told me, I think about 50% of the people have filled out their pledge cards online. Right on. Now, that may not be for you. We certainly have pledge cards here in this building, over in the administrative building. You can go by and pick one up there. Or you can, go to our website or look out for our e-news, and there should be links on there. to do that. And so, it's an estimate of giving for the coming year. But, I think there's something about writing it down and turning it in that there's accountability in that. And so I do like that and, do encourage that. Everybody's situation is different.
Sure.
But I do encourage that, and, I'm very touched by just the response so far. It's been amazing. Yeah.
And just to reiterate, some of the reasons we do this as well, we kind of have this time is we are also kind of in our budget cycle where we're kind of thinking about what are we going to be able to do next year? What are some of the things that are important? So we take these numbers and kind of generate an idea of how are we going to do ministry? How are we going to be the best stewards of what is going to be given to help further our ministry next year? So, it's kind of a balancing act.
And we have admittedly come through a difficult time. And we talked about it, I think, the last time we had a podcast. We talked about we have a difficult time with, COVID's been 4 or 5 years away, but, there's still, some of the repercussions of that are still living with us. The Methodist disaffiliation, we lost some giving and attendance in that. And so, in the recovery, though, we were blessed to have some reserves.
Yeah.
And so we've lived into those reserves, particularly 2 years ago. We really had to depend on those reserves. This year, less so, but still, we haven't had a balanced budget.
Yeah.
We're still operating in arrears. And the goal is next year that we get back to, because living like that's not sustainable.
Right.
We were blessed, and that's part, I think, God's seeds that He provided for us that allowed us to get through this difficult time. But now is the point where we need to get to a balanced budget to go forward. And I have every belief that we'll get there this year, and maybe be able to even replenish some of those reserves. But it is the budget time, and we're dreaming about, and we have so many dreams of what we want to do in the future, including a new building and some new programs and that sort of stuff like that. So it helps us. We did stewardship a little bit earlier this year so we could get a running start on 2026. But 2025 has been awesome. Yeah, I've said awesome a lot.
A lot of awesome. It's been awesome.
Okay. It's been great.
Really, swell.
Really, really great. Swell. Yeah. I don't know. I'm not kind of a swell guy, but yeah. But I think 2026 is going to be the best year we've had at Hickory Clanton in a while. I'm just really looking forward to all the plans and things that are ahead of us next year. And so, but we are, as we kind of transition out of talking about the sermon and talking about what's ahead, we are, at the end of October. It's the first Sunday of November. This is the Sunday, traditionally, all churches everywhere in the world celebrate All Saints. And so we'll be remembering those saints that have gone before us. A few church members. We thankfully didn't have a whole lot of church members, but we did have some wonderful, loved, faithful church members that have passed in this past year. We'll be remembering them. And then we've had a lot of church members who have lost family members this year, and we're remembering them and thinking about their legacy and our legacy as we continue our path of faith. And then before we turn around, it's going to be Thanksgiving and Christmas. And so much more about that to come. But
that's right.
We need to finish out this year consistent with how strong the rest of the year has been. And I have every belief we'll be doing that.
We will for sure. Well, you've already kind of given us what we're looking forward to next week and all that good stuff. So it's a great place to kind of wrap it up. And just, again, if you have questions, concerns, or anything that you'd like to ask either one of us, just send us an email. You can drop questions into the comment section below on the Facebook, YouTube, anything like that. And without any further ado, Dave, you got anything to add?
Yeah, I do.
I saw the hands.
Yeah,
I saw the pastor hands come up.
Actually, I do have one big thing. If you were watching this, and this should be coming out Wednesday, which is the day of our big trunk or treat, we need your help. promoting the fact that we are having trunk or treat. It will be inside, but they're already, even as I speak, making plans of how we're going to move it inside. We several years ago, it's been a while now, before I came, this happened once before, but there's some confusion because there's some other churches in the area that have canceled theirs. We are not. We are full on. The party is on, and we need your help with promoting that. No confusion at all. Trunk or treat is on.
Rain or shine.
And inside.
We're here.
There will be no cars inside.
No.
But the candy, the hot dogs, the live music, the games, the fellowship.
It'll be here.
It'll all be here. So help us promote that and come on out and let's have a great time.
And it's really just to build off of that a little bit. It's such a good, festive, fun time, and it's really well liked in the community as well. So we expect a pretty good turnouts and all that good stuff. So come be a good light to our community. Come share, come have a good time, grab a hot dog, listen to some good music. It'll be a good time.
Yep, it will be. All right. That's all I got.
All right. Thank you guys so much for watching. We'll catch you next time.
Thanks. God bless.